This is for you because I'm assuming they've both passed out and gone to sleep. So I thought you'd like this one. There's your holiness. Yeah, you're awake anyway. I might as well. Chapter 2, in which PooH goes visiting and gets into a tight place. Edward Bear, known to his friends as Winnie the Pooh, or PooH for short, was walking through the forest one day, humming proudly to himself. He made a little hum that very morning, and he was doing his stoutness exercises in front of the glass. Tra-la-la, tra-la-la, as he stretched up as high as he could go, and then tra-la-la, oh help, la, as he tried to reach his toes. After breakfast, he had said it over and over to himself, until he had learnt it off by heart, and now he was humming right through properly, and it went like this. Tra-la-la, 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 rum-tum, tiddle-um-tum, tiddle-iddle, 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 rum-tum-tum, tiddly-um. Well, he was humming this hum to himself and walking gaily along, wondering what everybody else was doing and what it felt like being somebody else, when suddenly he came to a sandy bank, and in that bank was a very large hole. Ah, said PooH, rum-tum, tiddlum-tum, if I know anything about anything, that hole means rabbit, he said, and rabbit means company, he said, and company means food, and listening to me humming and such like. Rum-tum, tiddlum-tum. So he bent down and put his head in the hole and called out, "Is anybody home?" There was a sudden scuffling noise from inside the hole, and then silence. "What I said was, is anybody home?" called out PooH very loudly. "No," said a voice, and then added, "You didn't need to shout so loud. I heard you quite well the first time." "Bother," said PooH. "Isn't there anybody there at all?" "Nobody." Winnie the Pooh took his head out of the hole, and threw a lift, and thought to himself, there must be somebody there, because somebody would have said nobody. Then he put his head back in the hole and said, "Hello, Rabbit, is that you?" "No," said Rabbit, in a different sort of voice this time. "But isn't that Rabbit's voice?" "I don't think so," said Rabbit. "It isn't meant to be." "Oh," said PooH, and he took his head out the hole and had another think, and then he put it back in and said, "Well, could you very kindly tell me where Rabbit is?" "He's gone to see his friend Pooh Bear, who is a great friend of his." "But this is me," said Bear, very much surprised. "What sort of me?" "Pooh Bear." "Are you sure?" said Rabbit, still more surprised. Quite sure," said Pooh. "Oh, well, come in then." So Pooh pushed his way through the hole, and at last he got in. "You were quite right," said Rabbit, looking him all over. "It is you. Glad to see you. Who did you think it was?" "Well, I wasn't sure. You know how it is in the forest, and one can never have anybody coming into one's house. One has to be careful one has to be careful about about a mouthful of one has to be careful about a mouthful of something." Pooh always liked a little something at 11 o'clock in the morning, and he was very glad to see Rabbit getting out the plates and mugs. And Rabbit said, "Honey or condensed milk with your bread?" And he was so excited that he said both. And then, so as not to seem greedy, he added, "But don't bother about the bread, please." And then after a long time he said, nothing, until at last, humming, he said to himself in a rather sticky voice, and he looked up at Rabbit lovingly by the paw and said, "You must be going on." "Must you?" said Rabbit politely. "Well," said PooH, "I could stay a little longer if you and he—" looked very hard in the direction of the larder. "As a matter of fact," said Rabbit, "I was going out myself directly." "Oh, well, I'll be going on then. Goodbye." "Well, goodbye, if you're sure you won't have any more." "Is there any more?" said Pooh Bear quickly. Rabbit took out the covers off the tissues. "No, there isn't." "I thought so," said Pooh, nodding to himself. "Well, goodbye, I must be going." So he started to climb up the hole, and he pulled with his front paws and pushed with his back paws, and after a little while his nose was cut out into the open again, and then his ears, and then he put his and then and then his front paws, and then his shoulders, and then, oh, help, said Pooh. I'd better go back. Oh, bother, said Pooh. I shall have to go on. I can't do either, said Pooh. Oh, help. Oh, bother. And by this time, Rabbit wanted to go for a walk too, and finding the front door now full, he went out by the back door and came round to Pooh and looked at him. Hello, are you stuck? He asked. No, 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 said Pooh carelessly, just resting and thinking and humming to myself. Here, give me a paw. Pooh Bear stretched out a paw, and Rabbit pulled and pulled and pulled. Ow! Cried Pooh. You're hurting! The fact is, said Rabbit, you're stuck. It's all come, said Pooh, of not having front doors big enough. It all comes, said Rabbit, drearily, from eating too much. I thought at the time, said Rabbit, only I didn't like to say anything, said Rabbit, that one of us was eating too much, and I knew it wasn't me, and said, well, I shall go and fetch Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin lived at the other end of the forest. When he came back with a rabbit, he saw the front half of Pooh. He said, silly old bear, in such a loving voice that everybody felt quite hopeful again. I was just beginning to think, said the bear, stiffening slightly, that Rabbit might never be able to use his front door again, and I should hate that, he said. So should I, said Rabbit. Use his front door again, said Christopher Robin. Of course he'll use his front door again. Good, said Rabbit. If we can't pull you out, Pooh, we might push you back. Rabbit scratched his whiskers and thoughtfully pointed out that when once Pooh was pushed back, he was back. And of course nobody was more glad to see Pooh than he was. But there was some lived in trees and some lived underground, and you mean I'll never get out, said Pooh. I mean, said Rabbit, that having to go so far, it seems a pity, as it were. Christopher Robin nodded. Then there's only one thing to be done, he said. We shall have to wait for you to get thin again. How long does that take? Asked Pooh, anxiously. About a week, I should think. But I can't stay here for a week. You can stay here all right, silly old bear. It's getting you out which is so difficult. We'll read to you, said Rabbit cheerfully. And we hope it won't snow, he added. And then I say, silly old fellow, you're in taking up a good deal of room in my house. Do you mind if I use your back legs as a towel horse? Because, there you are, doing nothing, and it would be very convenient just to hang towels on them. A week, said Pooh gloomily. What about meals? I'm afraid no meals, said Christopher Robin, because of getting thin quicker. But we'll read to you. Bear began to sigh, and then found he couldn't, because he was so tightly stuck, and a tear rolled down his eye, and he said, but would you read a sustaining book, such as would help a comfort for a wedged bear in great tightness? So for a week Christopher Robin read that sort of book and the north end of Pooh. And Rabbit hung his washing on the south end, and in between the bear felt himself getting slender and slender, and at the end of the week Christopher Robin said, now. So he took hold of Pooh's front paw, and Rabbit took hold of Christopher Robin's, and all of Rabbit's friends and relations took hold of Rabbit, and they all pulled together, and for a long time Pooh only said, ow, and oh, and then all of a sudden he said, oh, pop, just like a cork were coming out of a bottle. And Christopher Robin and Rabbit and all of Rabbit's friends and relations all went head over heels backwards, and at the top of them came Winnie the Pooh. Free! So with a nod and a thanks to his friends, he went on with a walk through the forest, humming proudly to himself. But Christopher Robin looked at him lovingly and said to himself, silly old bear.